YouTube, YouTube! Mr. King coming at you live from the studio. Here are the questions for the day. Please pause the video now and answer the questions. What is your biggest fear? Which guppy did you predict would take over when there's more pollution? And what do you think of when you hear the word evolution? Okay, moving on. Here's some announcements. We have the evolution exam on Thursday and Friday, and that's actually the last exam we're going to have for the semester because our last unit is called Teen Talk, and we won't have a test, it'll just be a project. And that'll be a great chance for people to boost their grade because Teen Talk is a lot easier than the other units we've been doing. Today, what you should be able to do is explain and cite evidence that all organisms share a common ancestor. Yep. Okay, review. So remember, evolution basically just means a change in a population over time. It takes a long time, and this is a fact. It's obvious, things change. Change is inevitable. Like humans, we start out in Africa, according to fossil evidence, and we've expanded and changed a lot. Now there's a ton of different skin colors. But the theory of evolution is new. Now, since populations change, logically, then if you go back in the beginning, we must have all come from the same organism and changed slowly into very separate species. That's the theory, that we're all related because if you go back in time, we were all similar and then we just changed over time. So when people hear evolution, they think, number one, humans came from monkeys. False. They think number two, God does not exist. Evolution doesn't disprove or prove that God exists. And then three, individual organisms choose to adapt and survive. There is no choice. I'm going to go over each one of these myths in detail. You don't need to take notes, just listen. Number one, humans came from monkeys. Myth. That's not true. We share a common ancestor with them. So, like, you wouldn't say you came from your cousin, you're just related to them. You came from something that is like a mixture of both, like kind of like a caveman. Yep. Next myth. Because there is evolution, then there cannot be a God. Reality, evolution only means organisms change over time. This does not necessarily mean that there is no higher power. For example, in Futurama, robots evolve over time, yet humans were the creator. Next one, myth. Organisms choose to adapt and survive. In reality, organisms can't choose. If there is pressure like a bird, then some moths are born with a mutation that is helpful, like camouflage here. Next, so remember, theory of evolution is a little different. Organisms change over time because some traits are more favorable, like being camouflaged with dirty water. And since organisms change over time, then all organisms, if you go back far enough, are already related to each other. And there is evidence that all organisms are related, and that's what we're going to go over today. So please go to Tuesday, Evidence of Evolution, and open it up. Part 1, evidence number 1 is embryology. Okay, embryos are basically like before a baby. Before a baby is fetus, and before fetus is an embryo. It's what you look like kind of as an egg in your mom. So here we have 6 different organisms and 6 different embryos. Just note, I put rabbit twice. It should go human, chicken, fish, then tortoise and salamander, then rabbit. So what you're going to do, you're going to guess in the beginning which embryo do you think came from a human, chicken, fish, tortoise, and then put the letter that corresponds with it. And then part 2, now here are the embryos that are a little more developed. Now you should have an easier time being able to tell which organisms go together. Put the letter that you think. Please pause the video now and answer 1 and 2. And then here are the answers. So A will eventually become a fish, B salamander, C tortoise, D chicken, E rabbit, F human. Okay, that's what they all will look like eventually. Were you close? Did you guess any correctly? Just wondering. And then number 2, what can you say about the development between these organisms? Hint, do these organisms share similar embryo development? Like, what do you notice about the beginning of these organisms and then at the end? And then 3, does this make you think humans are related to these organisms? Why or why not? Okay, evidence number 2, something called homologous structures. Remember, homo, like homozygous, means same. So homologous structures means same structures. Below are some arms for different organisms. You got a human, a whale, a crocodile, a cat, a bird, a bat. What do you notice about these bones that are similar? What do you notice about these bones that are different? Please put the answer here. And then number 2, does this make you think that humans are related to these organisms? Why or why not? Okay, part 3, DNA, molecular biology. So there is basically a protein that's found in almost all organisms, at least animals. And then notice that I give you a bunch of different amino acids. Now what you're going to do, you're going to compare all of the organisms' amino acids to those of humans. Know which ones are similar, DNA/proteins, and which ones don't have that much similar DNA. So remember, DNA is ATCG, but eventually they'll become proteins, and here are the amino acid letters. So if you look at 42, they all have Q, but if you look at 44, humans have P, and so do horses, and so do monkeys. So after you compare all the letters, answer, which animals do humans share the most DNA? Which humans share the least DNA? Where do organisms get their DNA from? And does this make you think we are related to these organisms? Why or why not? Yep. So there you go. That's all we're going to do for today. We'll finish part 4 and part 5 tomorrow. So don't finish that yet. We'll finish that all on Wednesday. Thank you for staying the entire time. Just make sure you take the tennis survey before you go. Thank you. I'll see you in the manana.